in July 2011, Whiting was again attacked in prison, stabbed in the eye. No one pressed charges by Whiting. No charge was pressed by Whiting, and consequently, the police investigation to the assault was not undertaken. His injuries was not life-threatening, and the third attack on him took place November 8, 2018, and he was stabbed by two other prisoners in his cell in HMP Wakefield. Welcome back to the True Crime Lounge podcast. I do have a Patreon that you can join. I also have a merch shop for all your true crime gear. For any update on my channel or a podcast, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Um, some reason my lighting is being difficult. I don't know why. But anyway, with that being said, I want to dive into part two of our three-part mini series of the Sarah Payne case. I feel it's important because this is the UK version of Megan's Law and everything. So, with that being said, we can dive in. But and so in our first part, we did an overview, the disappearance, and the trial and sentencing. This part, I really want to talk about Rory Whitling, his first conviction, his in prison, and the aftermath. And then in the third part, I'm going to talk about the timeline, the mistake, and explain Sarah's law. Because I live in the US, so because in the UK version, it's completely different than Megan's law. So, with that being said, Roy William Whitling, Wh- Whiting, well, I don't know why I keep saying Whitling, but the man was found guilty of murdering Sarah Payne. He was born in Horsham on July 26, 1959, grew up in Crawley, and he lived for most of his life until he was convicted on the murder. He has worked with he was one of six children born to George and Pam Whiting, but three of his siblings died in infancy. He grew up in Langley Green, Crawley. In June 1986, he married Linda Booker. They separated before their son was born the following year and divorced in 1990. Um, Whiting also fathered a daughter with another unnamed woman around 1990, and he was involved in a banger racing during the 20s and the 30s, his 20s and 30s. But eventually he abandoned the interest in sports um, due to a lack of success. Now, his first conviction happened on March 4th, 1995. An 8-year-old girl was abducted. She was sexually assaulted in Langley Field in Crawley. And she was arrested, and several weeks later, the man who knew him came forward at the hearing of the abductor's car near a red Ford Sierra, was a red Ford Sierra, which matched the description of the car Whiting had just sold. And the vehicle was traced, and the police knew it was the owner, and a knife was found in it. On June 23rd, 1995, Whiting admitted to the charges in the abduction of an indecent assault. A lesser sentence because he had admitted to the crime at an early opportunity. Although psychiatrists who assessed Whiting after his conviction said that he was likely to reoffend upon release. But they never listened to him, do they? No, they don't. Um, but Whiting was released from prison in November 1997, served 2 years and 5 months and of the 4-year sentence, and one of the first people in Britain to go on the sex offender registry. He also had been forced to serve an extra 5 months in prison before being released on the license as a penalty for refusing to participate in sex offenders rehabilitation program. Um, On November 24th, it was announced that Home Secretary David Blunkett had imposed a 50-year sentence on Whiting, and which meant that he would not be released from prison until 2051 at the age of 92. Shortly afterward, the High Court in the European Court of Human Rights ruled in favor of another convicted murderer, Anthony Anderson, who was challenging the Home Secretaries to decide how long a life sentence prisoner should be considered for parole. In June 2024, the media reported that Whiting would appeal to the High Court for his sentence to be reduced. Whiting appealed against the ruling and was heard on June 9, 2010 at the High Court, which has now had the final say on when a life sentence of a prisoner can be considered for parole. His lawyer argued that Blunkett's decision was politically motivated. He had also known that some time had been likely, and he stripped the powers to decide minimum terms of life sentence prisoners. Now that the government was under fire for the British public due to the firefighter strike, and that one would be an opportunity of setting a 50-year tariff for writing. The next move would have a popular voters due to the profile in crime that it was still relatively fresh to the public imagination. Shortly before the decision, Myra Henley had died, which I plan on covering her later at a later time. But she had been sent to a licensed prisoner and whose minimum gradually increased to 25 years by a succession of Home Secretaries, causing Henley and supporters to claim her sentence was increased from similar fashion in Whiting's. The High Court reduced Whiting's minimum term to 40 years, bringing him forward to his parole date to 2041, making him eligible for parole at the age of 82. So, let's talk about his attacks in prison now. On August 4, 2002, Whiting was attacked with a razor by another prisoner with fetching hot water in HMP Wakefield. In June 2004, convicted murderer Rickle Tragaskis was found guilty of carrying out the slashing and left him with a 6-inch scar on his right cheek. Ricky, serving a life sentence for murder of a disabled man in Cornwall, received a 6-year sentence for the attack. Child pedophiles get a special place in hell. I had to say it. I had to say it. They also have a special place in prison. In July 2011, Whiting was again attacked in prison, stabbed in the eye. No one pressed charges by Whiting. No charge was pressed by Whiting, and consequently, the police investigation to the assault was not undertaken. His injuries was not life-threatening, and a third attack on him took place November 8, 2018, and he was stabbed by 2 other prisoners in his cell in HMP Wakefield. He was taken to the hospital for treatment and returned shortly after in stable condition. On February 11, 2024, Whiting was seen again attacked at HMP Wakefield, and a spokesperson said at 5:14 p.m. police received a call of a male prisoner had been stabbed. He is not believed to be life-threatening or life-changing, and inquiries are going on with the Wakefield CID. Let's talk about the aftermath now. Sarah's Law, a campaign for Sarah's Law would start, and this basically is a campaign that was superheaded by the News of the World's newspaper, became in July 2001 in response to Payne's mom. And this would become the campaign that's known as Sarah's Law, named after Megan's Law in the U.S. For those of you who want to know more about that case, I did talk about that case. It should be in season 1, I believe. I can't remember what episode, but it's cases that changed the law. You can go back and watch that. If you are new here, if you just haven't seen it. But um, her parents had backed the campaign as they were sure that their daughter's killer was previously convicted child sex offender. Their belief was proved correct 17 months later when Roy Riding had been found guilty of the murder, and it was revealed that he had already had a conviction of abducting and indecency of an 8-year-old girl. Now, this aim for the campaign was to work for the governor and allow for control access to sex offender registry. Ow. So young children could know if a sex offender lived in the area. Payne's mom had already insisted that such a law could save their daughter's life. A modified scheme whereby parents had inquired about a named individual who had regular access to their children and introduced 4 pilot areas of England and Wales. In September 2008, in August 2010, the Home Office announced that after proving success, the Child Sex Offender Disclosure Scheme would be extended to cover the whole of England and Wales in spring of 2011. This law would allow parents to ask police and somebody with regular access to the children and has a record for sex offenders. Now, Payne's family. In July 2001, it was reported that Payne's family received €11,000 compensation from the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority, an executive agency in the UK government. And Sarah Payne was described the offer as a sick joke in Desiree, even though the maximum SICA offered by law. Medium sources were also keen to criticize the payout and compared to much higher payouts made in criminal and civil law cases relatively minor injuries and work-related stress. In 2004, um, the book Sarah Payne, A Mother's Stories by Payne's mom, Sarah Payne, about her daughter's murder and the campaign, published in Holder Sultan. Sarah Payne had made a member of the Order of the British Empire in December 2008, as she worked her passing Sarah's Law, and in December 2009, she suffered a life-threatening stroke and collapsed at her home, but she went on to a good recovery. In July of 2011, it was revealed that Sarah Payne had been among those targeted in the news international phone hacking scandal, and Payne's mom refused to believe it. Since the News of the World had been helpful in championing Sarah's Law, she even wrote an editorial in the newspaper about her final edition. Initially, thought she was hacked because her name did not come up in records, and her personal details releasing her were found to be attributed to another suspected victim. Sarah's phone, now that was hacked, was given to her by the News of the World's Rebecca Brooks, who was the editor at the time of Sarah's murder. Sarah's father, Michael, suffered from depression following the disappearance of his daughter, and he separated from his wife of 18 years in August 2003, and subsequently appeared um, as an alcoholic and a 16-month jail term service. Um, in December 2011 and was intoxicated. On October 30th, 2014, he was found dead at his home in Maidstone, Kent. And police reported there was no suspicious circumstances. He is believed to have died of alcohol-related illness several days before his body was found.